We're discussing the topics of leadership, service, community, and faith. It's more than being a leader, but putting action to your words. We are Serve as a Verb. Today we're talking with Jeff Cook with the Faith Angler Network. Now, Jeff is a 30-year tech field survivor and has come out of that profession and is now doing something really cool. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
So tell us, what does that mean for the unindoctrinated who didn't grow up around the tech field, who don't understand some of that volatility?
When I got into the field of technology, I really didn't know either. I started a kind of grassroots from the ground up, got in the field, and learned quickly that it's a rotation. Technology companies evolve quickly and dissolve quickly, and large companies change. And it was a little interesting just to be in a company. At the time, I worked for Dell, and I was in the field, and I'm doing my job, and I get a call from my manager, and he's saying, "Hey, great news, you survived this layoff." And I was just oblivious that was even going on. Oh, okay, great. And then now it's on your mind. How often is this going to happen? And anyone that's been in the technology sector for any time knows that it is common, and it's extremely common right now. We are seeing tens of thousands of people being let go in the technology sector, in all sectors. But in the last 15 or so years, when I made an effort to be obedient and follow God's plan for my life, it became less stressful. And I've been very fortunate to have had a 14-year career with one company until they were recently acquired, and things changed. But that opened the door for me to follow God and honor God and into this new endeavor. So I don't know, that's the high level response to that question. It did get better as I learned to be obedient and trust in God. And my verse to address that and be mindful of that was Colossians 3:23. This is the NIV. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. It took me a long time to appreciate that and understand that. But that is a life-changing moment to think about that and whatever you do in that mind frame. So a 30-year tech survivor, it's tough if you don't know some fundamental biblical approaches and have your faith in Jesus to navigate that in life in general, actually.
Who is Jeff, and how did you get to this point in your life?
Ooh, I am a 63-year-old guy that's learned everything the hard way. That's a whole nother podcast. I grew up in Amarillo. My dad was in the oil industry, and as we were young, we traveled all over the world. Norway, Singapore, London, a lot of places in between. Houston was always home base for me, and Clinton, Oklahoma, where my grandparents lived, because if my parents traveled, they could send me to my grandparents. And I grew up probably very similar to a military kid, and all of the stuff that comes with that. The one thing that I think I fondly remember, which is germane to the topic, was my grandpa loved to fish. And in the rivers of Oklahoma and the ponds, we were always out there. His old Ford truck smelling like stink bait. And I remember that immensely. My dad would take me to Galveston and we would fish. But I also, the thing is, I learned everything. Like I said, I learned everything the hard way. When I got married very young, I had a child very young. I did go to college, but I didn't stay in college. I got fired from every job I ever had from 18 to probably 30. And it was a mechanic. I worked on an offshore boat. I've worked on I've done everything mechanical. And at one point, my dad got fired from a job, and I'm young. I have a baby, and my dad takes me to a career counselor psychologist, and we did this Berkman method test. I don't know if it's still around, but it's an assessment of what you should be doing. And ultimately the results are I need to be working with people, not things, because I just don't do things all. My wife will tell you she's a better handyman than me, and I'm very thankful for that. But at that point, it changed the trajectory for me, and I started looking for employment in the customer service field, and it was really the path to success because I enjoyed it. I didn't get fired from it. And it went from that to working for a company for 12 years, to another company for 5, to another one for 15. So it took a while for me to figure that out. And I'm very thankful I figured it out, actually, because I am where I am because of a pivotal moment. My dad actually, in frustration, dragged me to a counselor.
Just briefly, you talked about spending time with your grandfather and fishing. Tell us a little bit more about this passion that you have.
Started with Grandpa, my dad. I never thought about it, but so many snapshots in my mind. I did a lot of fishing. It really started back in the early 1990s after I moved back to Austin, and I started to get involved with bass fishing specifically as a competitive sport, is more than just a hobby. It also was the time when I started to make Christ a priority in my life. And it's fundamentally different from saying I'm a Christian to walking as a Christian and having a relationship with Christ. At that point, I was working with a company that was doing some document reproduction. I was gifted a gift certificate for a guide trip from who ultimately became a mentor of mine in the industry. And we went out and we did some bass fishing out here on Lake Austin, and we started becoming friends. He operated a fishing tournament trail, and again, early 90s, there weren't very many here, but he was pretty much the guy from fishing tournaments. And we bartered fishing trips. I printed his flyers for him, and we became good friends, and he encouraged me to get into a bass club. And that's when I said, I need to be connected to men and in this faith walk. And I started looking for Christian bass clubs. And there's about 3 or 4 of them in Austin. And I ended up at Shenandoah Christian Bass Club, and really just, it was the greatest thing ever. I'm in a group of men, iron sharpening iron. Oh, and we're fishing. How cool is that? And that ultimately got me into the fishing the other tournament trails that Mike Hastings was running. Relocated from Austin to D.C. for work, managing some accounts there in the Maryland area, and said, I've got to start over. How do I find that same thing here? And I was at a hunting and fishing show. I ran into a gentleman that was a tournament director for Fishers of Men tournament trail in the area. We connected, and I started fishing that organization. Fishers of Men is a national trail, and it was fun. Again, it's exactly what I needed to continue to be connected with accountability to mentorships and enjoy fishing. I moved back home in 2003, and the old question is, I asked the founder of the organization, Fishers of Men, hey, we just don't have anything like that here. How do we do that? And the obvious answer is, you can do it. I don't know anything about running a bass tournament. I'm a rookie in the whole bass fishing thing. But through really, again, the key here is mentorships and having the right people in your life. Mike and I spent some time. He helped me build the confidence through prayer. And we started Fishers of Men in 2003. And it was an adult trail. So it was just a traditional 2-man adults fishing. And that's how I got into this business. I still fished competitively. I was working. I was doing Fishers of Men. And I did that until, probably for about 7 or 8 years when we decided to jump into the Faith Angler Network organization.
What gave you the idea or the vision for FAN?
FAN was something that I came up with a long time ago, right after Dell. I decided at that point I'm going to go all in fishing full time. I'm going to guide. I'm going to pursue the trail. I'm going to do everything. And so I had to come up with the DBA for my guide business. Faith Angler Network, FAN. It was a great acronym, and that's how FAN became real. I used it for my guide business. And during that time, my dad was helping me. When I first got started running the trails, it was me and my dad and a few people. And my dad was always there, and we were running Fisher's Men. It was growing like crazy, and it was just beyond our expectations. But we had always talked about what it would look like to have something that was just Central Texas based or local, because Fishers and Men was national. Their resources were different and how we could allocate. We were fundraising for our own sponsors and stuff, and we just had talked about this for years. And unfortunately, passed away in a single car accident going fishing. And as I was going through his desk and cleaning out some stuff, I saw a notepad that he was really serious about doing this. And he had wrote out Faith Angler Network and the different things, and he had this blueprint. And I felt like, man, it was just a hard moment, because I said I missed a chance to do something with my dad. And at that point, I said, I'm going to leave Fishers of Men, and I'm going to move forward with this vision in honor of my dad. And in 2009, we formed the 501c3, and Faith Angler Network was formed as an adult trail. And we moved forward with that, and it was really an exciting, again, talk about surrender and just leave it at Jesus' feet. All right, God, how do you want this to work? And that's how that evolved, and the story progresses of how we are today.
Tell us, when you first started FAN, what were you guys trying to accomplish?
Our mission was to share the gospel with fishermen and their families. The goal is always to provide them tools to navigate life outside of just being on the water. Fishing's fishing, and if you've been competitive fishing for a while, get your buddy and you go out there, and the tournaments are sponsored by beer manufacturer or whatever, and that's all fine and dandy, but the environment just isn't filled with Holy Spirit. It's a different beast. And I did that. I'm not knocking it, but our intention was to change that and to be able to provide these tools and have messages. And I say mentorships, but we wanted to help men in their marriages. And I say God wanted us to give them his tools to help them in marriages, parenting, life. And our approach was a little bit different, because we would have the tournaments, but the Friday night before the event, we would have a meeting, a pre-tournament meeting, a catered meal, and a guest speaker. And then we would go through the tournament stuff and raffles and door prizes. And that was where we were able to share a testimony, or a speaker would share how God has been moving in their life. And that was our key objective. And then, oh, by the way, tomorrow we're all going to go fishing, okay? And then you're going to win some money and all that stuff. And so that was the objective. And as we had grown to vast numbers, became more, wow, we're seeing 80 teams or 160, 200 people attend, and their families. And that was, okay, that's what we're to attract more members, to touch more people. And we quickly learned that is not necessarily God's plan and approach to how he wanted us to grow his kingdom. But that's what FAN and Fishers of Men were all about, and its original inception.
Tell us about some of the obstacles that y'all encountered, things you had to overcome.
When we talk about spiritual warfare, it's a real thing, and something that I talk about a lot with these kids, especially in the armor of God. But as we moved from Fishers of Men, or what I'll call FOM, into FAN, or Faith Angler Network, our numbers were dropping a little bit. Another trail had come to fruition. It was a very secular trail that was totally attacking us. Everything we did, that was the pre-tournament meeting, we're going to have another kind of Friday night event that had nothing to do with God. It was just, they were brutally attacking us. And I took it very personal. I don't think I was mature enough to understand what was going on. And it was bothering me, and it was taking away our members. And so ours were declining, and they were going over there because now they're the cool fun trail and have all the cool fun stuff. And I won't get into all of that, but it was definitely polar opposite of what we were doing. And so I had this really bad idea, and then this is not of God, this was of the world, saying, why don't you just throw more money at it? Let's go give away a bass boat for the championship, which is not uncommon in much bigger tournaments with a lot more participation. And so I found myself doing things that just were not fiscally responsible. They weren't really obedient to God. And it was obvious that was wrong. And that was toward the end of the adult trail, because I realized, okay, God, thank you for this opportunity to do what we've done. We've done, I think, what you've asked us to do, but this door must be closing because I'm not feeling led. I'm feeling beat up. And that's really, the lesson is you just got to surrender and be obedient to listen to what God's going on, because he already saw this coming. He had something better planned for us. That's how we got started in the high school fishing organization.
Tell us about moving from an adult trail to a high school trail.
Yeah, this is where my eyes light up. As I mentioned, it was a very difficult time for me in the adult trail as I was learning how to navigate through what I'd call the spiritual warfare and the struggles. I truly felt that isn't what God wants us to do. That when God's involved and he's in it, it just comes together. And I was content. I spent a long time praying about it, and I'm gonna shut it down. And that's a hard thing to do when you've created something to, I don't know if consider it a failure or whatever, but it was just, I remember me and my wife just praying, and I came to a space that I was content. And we're just gonna lock up the trailer, park it, sell it, and then I'm gonna go enjoy whatever's left, whatever's next. And about during this time, one of the dads, him and his son had been fishing with us, and he was doing something kind of fun with the kids in his neighborhood, and he would bring them out maybe once a month to a local pond and just do fishing education and fishing. And he had asked me if I'd help sponsor him, and I said, absolutely. And I was telling him what's going on. And Scott Anderson is really instrumental in where we are today. He goes, Jeff, you've got all of this stuff. There's an opportunity to reach these kids. I'm willing to help you. We can do this together. And within probably 2 or 3 months, we put the team together. And one of the things that's so important is it's the team. But I think it's extremely important to what makes this successful. And any leader or anybody that's doing mission work or just about anything is a good team. It's not Jeff, it's the Scotts, it's the Marys, it's my wife, it's Justin and John. I have people that have been part of what I've been doing when we did for 18 years. That's the inspiration too. But we couldn't do what we do without those people. It's too big. It's bigger than just a person. God puts the right people in your life. But what evolved was Faith Angler Network High School Fishing. And we started with about 30 teams. I think we were at Lake LBJ and went to about 100 teams across a majority of the state of Texas. And it is so uniquely different, and it's so rewarding. And I think we'll get into this, but there's a tremendous need for us as adults, as leaders, ministry leaders, to get engaged with our middle school kids and our high school kids. And that's how we ended up being an adult trail to a high school fishing trail to where we are today.
What have you tried to accomplish working with the youth age, and what have you learned?
Oh man, again, probably a whole nother podcast. But as a dad, I've raised kids and seeing the challenges that kids have. And also our goal was the same as the adult trail. We want to share the life-changing reality of Jesus Christ with the kids. We want to give them the tools. We want them to know their identity is in Christ, not in things. And in school today, and I'll be specific, in middle school today, there's a lot of kids that are getting direction in many ways. And none of it, or very little of it, is biblical. And that is where we're seeing our opportunity to impact kids. Not everybody plays football, baseball, and basketball, but everybody wants to belong. And in middle school and in high school, you want to be part of something. And if not, you're isolated, and isolation is the enemy. And we've seen kids that aren't in sports get involved in fishing programs in their school and now are part of something. It's life-changing to them. I've witnessed it so many times where there was a Y in the road, and through the grace of God, they chose getting involved in a fishing group at their school and being part of a fan event and getting tools and getting to be part of something. They are now part of the pep rallies in schools because they all get their jerseys. It's a club. And so now they're at the 4th of July parades. And I've seen kids that have moved on to be leaders in the community or in the military. And I just feel that is exactly what we're supposed to be doing right now in such a time as this. So one of the great stories that I love to share, and we actually have a video of it on our social and on our website, is a story of a mom whose son was struggling, and they were struggling, but he loved to fish. And she tells us that he would fish like a flooded pothole. That's just it. Wherever he was, he always loved to fish. But he was at that Y I spoke about. She learned about a fishing program out here, actually, Texas Bass Academy. It's no longer in existence, but she told them that I'm going to take you to the club and I want you to go. And he was like, I don't want to go. I have no desire. I mean, he was on the edge. There was some real challenges that he was dealing with. And she says, I dropped him off and you're going in and I'll pick you up in 2 hours. And he went in and he was off in the back and first meeting, but he stuck with it. He became involved in the club. Part of the way the programs work, if you're a parent or a grandparent that has a boat, they team you up with someone who doesn't have a boat. And he was struggling with getting a seat on a boat there early as he got in the club. He was too new. And a lot of people already had their teams made up. And so I think it was about year number 2. She said, I'm going to buy a boat. She says, I want him on the water, and he's not, I know that he's, going to call it a pecking order, but there's a process that these kids get to be able to get on a boat to fish. And she said, boom. So she told me she was going to go buy this used, old, beat-up Skeeter boat. She's never backed a boat in the water. She's never driven a boat. What an amazing commitment to her kid. She got out there in the boat, broke down. Clay and Gavin were just like, oh, Mom, this is embarrassing. This is, what did I sign up for? And then they would come to the weigh-in, and I knew the story, so I'd go, hey, guys, how was your day on the water? And they'd tell me whatever, and I go, so who's your captain? And they would, it's my mom. I go, Mom, way to go, Mom. And they just roll their eyes. It's just like, you could tell it just was hard. But she was so committed, and she would do it. And every tournament, she would do it. I think a year or so later, the second year, she said, I'm done with the used boat. And so she went and bought a new boat, an aluminum boat at pro shops. And they went out and they were getting better. They were getting better. The kids were good fishermen, but she was out there. And there was a story where she was saying, maybe if you just threw it over there to that log. And they go, what? I got a fish. It's fast forward. And year 3, they've qualified for the championship, which is really cool. It's the state. So they were going, okay, the second in their senior year, they qualified for the championship and won the championship and the scholarship money. And the story is going from a mom who was, man, I love my son. I want him to do something. I know he loves to fish. I'm just going to force him to do something he's uncomfortable with. And he gets involved. He was setting in like a board position at the club toward the end. I think he was like a secretary or treasurer. And so he started learning. He started getting confidence. They started seeing success. The memories that mom and that son have, you can't put a price tag on. Those are lifetime memories that I'm getting goosebumps right now just to see that God allowed us to be a conduit for them to maybe get some biblical principles, to understand some truths, for them to spend some time together and have memories that they'll never forget. He is now in a leadership position in the Army. And mom reached out to me every once in a while and just tells me that she's so grateful and that she wouldn't change it for anything. And again, that's just one story, but it's a story that just makes my heart super happy. Watching kids blossom. And we're also, something I try to do as the MC of the events is give them the microphone and let them share. Tell us how your day was. And so I'm encouraging to speak in public to some degree. Not everybody, some of them they have no desire. I don't push it. But I've watched kids come from just frozen on stage to actually being able to articulate to the crowd of a couple hundred people, today was a tough day, or we had a great day. We focused on ledges in 20 feet, and we caught them on this. I want to thank God, and I want to thank my parents, and I want to thank sponsor A, sponsor B. And that is so exciting for me to fuel, and just to watch kids of all ages just be part of something, because God created us to be in community, and that's one thing we want to inspire our kids to do.
What did you learn about yourself during this journey, and what could you share with others who are considering serving others?
Wow, man, I learned a lot. Again, I tell you, I learned everything the hard way, but fear is real. And overcoming our fear to do anything is vital. And the Bible says we're not in a spirit of fear, but we are in a spirit of faith. And again, it comes to surrendering. And for me, I had to let go. Once I decided this is what I wanted to do, it was easy. But then there were moving junctures in this journey where I had to continue to let go. And what I learned about myself is I'm human like everyone else. I get caught up in me, and I start thinking, oh, me. But then I had to remember what God says is, first of all, I'm working for the Lord. I'm not working for me. And this is a ministry. This is serving. This is giving back, but it's also kingdom building. And once I was able to, and I still have to remind myself, once I remind myself that's the mission, then it becomes less about me and fear and more about execution and stepping out. And I also learned, and I've said this earlier, my team is the most important element because they surround us as leaders and they encourage, because we need to be lifted up. We need to be encouraged. We need to be mentored. They help get things done when you're frozen, and that happens. But I also constantly ask myself if I'm measuring up to God's expectation as a steward of his kingdom, his funds. And quite honestly, that is an element of fear for me, because I want to meet Jesus and I want him to say I did good. And I think that's good and healthy, because that's the rails that says I am moving down this path and I'm doing it to honor God and be obedient and to build the kingdom. So obedience and surrender, don't get lost on worldly things, is vital. And surrounding yourself with the mentors and the people and the accountability. But really, none of that matters if you don't step out. At the end of the day, you can you could use this in a church where they're asking for someone to serve coffee, to help with usher the children's. That's an act of faith. And jump out and do that. If I have a passion for cycling, shooting, how can I incorporate that into my kingdom building efforts? And that's what I did. I said, I love to fish and I want to be obedient to God. And so somehow God heard that prayer and said, here you are, Faith Angler Network. My passion for the outdoors and my determination to serve and build the kingdom and serve God and be obedient. That was as simple as that. We all have a place that we can do that. And I don't know who it is for any one of you out there, but just take a leap of faith and say, I'm going to go do this, and surround yourself with the right people that can encourage you and help you, and just stand back and watch God work, because he's already got this figured out. You don't have to. There is another verse that I think has been really important to me, and it's actually on my signature on my email, but it's Philippians 4:6-7. It says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I get it. That's hard. Don't be anxious about anything. Why is fear one of the most common words in the Bible? It's because we all have it. But we just got to just pray, breathe, and execute, because nothing happens without action, and that's what the call is.
Tell us what's next for FAN.
We're real excited for where FAN is going and where God is leading us. I think at the beginning, we shared my tech career, and it stopped. And when God closed that door, very prayerfully, we said, God, where do you want me next? And after meeting with many people, spiritual mentors, financial mentors and everything, it just sharing with them where I'm passionate, where I want to go, it was overwhelming that FAN is where I'm going to go. And I say that when you're in ministry and working, the moment you decide to go all in and you say, I'm all in and I'm going to do this full time, it then opens you up to say, all right, God, if I woke up every day and all I did was FAN, what would that look like? And that's the exciting part. But FAN traditionally has been a series of fishing tournaments and a championship and a few fish days and community things. And we'll continue to do that. It is what we do and it's what we love. But FAN moving into the next season, we want to focus on the kids that don't have boats and don't have access to boats, but still want to fish. And the goal is to get out into the cities and give the kids that may not have a chance to experience fishing in the outdoors to have that experience through fishing derbies, learn to fish events in the community. And the goal is to work with agencies and Parks and Wildlife, police, fire department, to come together and hold events it could be Fiesta Shores. As an example, we've done this once before a long time ago, and we brought the community together to work with the inner city kids and just give them this experience. It was fun, and many caught fish for the first time in their lives. And we showed them how to do that. We showed the parents how to rig a small one-aught hook with a sinker and a bobber. So we're giving them the tools so they could go back to the park at any other time and take their kids. And that's really where I'm passionate moving forward. And that's a step in faith because we've never really made that a commitment in our business plan. But FAN, we're going to wrap up. Our season typically follows the school calendar. So we start in September-ish and we wrap up in May. In March of 2025, March 8th, we'll be at the Coletta Creek, which is out near Victoria, where we're going to hold our final qualifying event. And right after that event, we're going to do baptisms. So we love to do that. We don't get to do that every season, but this season we have some young anglers that have made a decision to follow Christ and want to profess that publicly. In my role, that's the ultimate happy space. And so we're really excited to do that. We'll have hot dogs and sausage wraps. It's just going to be a party. And then we'll be back in LBJ and April 15th, I believe, for a wild card tournament. And then our championship and banquet will be May, and I don't know the dates, I should know this, but it's on our calendar. We'll have an annual banquet with an amazing guest speaker, Clay Dyer, if you don't know who he is. And then we'll hold the championship where we'll award over $15,000 in scholarships and prizes. So that's the schedule, but there's other things that are coming up that I think I'd love for your audience to know. Every year, Williamson County hosts a Williamson County Learn to Fish Day. And on April 12th from 8 to noon, we will be out at Southwest Williamson County Regional Park hosting a Learn to Fish Day. It's open to everybody, and we will be out there helping youth, kids of all ages, by the way, how to catch fish. We'll be there. We'll have a fish tank. We'll have a pond. We'll have a ton of fun resources, how to learn to cast and tie knots, how to be a good angler, tips and techniques from experts, backyard bass, and then the live fish expeditions. I'll put that on your calendar. We'd love to see you out there. And so that's what's coming up. That's a lot to tackle in one breath.
How can folks get involved with FAN?
That's appreciated, actually. There's many ways to support FAN. If you own a boat and you have experience in bass fishing, we'd love to have you as a captain. Number one, we have so many kids that don't get to fish because we don't have enough captains. And one of our mottos, one of many, is no kid left at the dock. And it's just a shortage. And so I appeal to anyone that's out there that has the heart and the resources to take a kid fishing. We would appreciate that. We're a 501c3 small, and donations and sponsorships are always greatly appreciated. We are more philanthropic than sponsor, but we do have sponsors and we have sponsorship packages for just about any budget. But a lot of folks just make in-kind donations to help us with scholarships and operational cost and expansion, and or just come out and help us run tournaments, help teach kids how to fish. If you've got Saturdays available and you want to do something, just give me a call. I got a place for you and love to have you.
Where can folks find FAN on the socials?
You can reach us on our website at faithanglernetwork.com. And we do have a social media presence on Facebook at Faith Angler Network. And also that would be Faith Angler Network on Instagram. So those are the best ways to reach us. You can always just reach out to me at jeff@faithanglernetwork.com, and happy to answer any questions you might have. But check out our website at faithanglernetwork.com, and there's a lot of information about us there.
Jeff, give us a final thought on FAN.
You know, what a joy it is to serve God, and what a joy it is to serve our community, especially these young, influential students, young women and young men. We do have a fair amount of young women teams, which is always fun to watch the young anglers, the female anglers whoop up on the boys. But to digress there, I think for me, when I think back of FAN and what we do, I have to say I see it from a lens of after the tournament, because I'm up there, we're working, and we don't really get to have the moments that most of everyone sees. So when I get the photograph uploads of all of the pictures that are taken, and I'm sitting there and I'm going through and we're getting ready to post, and it's the face, it's the smiles. I look at the kids, these young kids, and they're just smiling, they're holding fish and or high-fiving, or I see the kids when we're having the prayer, and kids and adults, and their heads are bowed and they're hands on and they're praying. And that is, again, it just gives me this kind of emotional moment where that's when I know that what we're doing is truly serving God, because God sees those smiles and he sees those hearts and he sees that. And I just feel like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. And usually, like I said, it's the next day when I get all the photos and I just go, wow. And it's an amazing feeling. It's the most exciting part for me after the tournament's over. I love that.
Jeff, thank you for coming in today and talking to us about the Faith Angler Network and how we can navigate fear, assemble teams, and make an impact in the areas that we're serving.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I love what you do, and I love the podcast, and I want to help out any way I can with what you do. I think our hearts are both in the same place, is to learn, share, and grow the kingdom.
Thank you for listening, and this is Serve as a Verb.
This one crazy, bro. Baby, I think I let you down. Driving through the city with the windows down. Cold in my face right now. Is this real or fake? That's one thing that I can't change. I can't. It's me. I stay the same. No girl gon' change my ways.